Ruben from the Remake. Thank you very much for joining us.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Congratulations with the remake, and really, so thank you so much for coming. That's always a big thrill for us. We know, really appreciate you making it here. So well done.
We're very happy to be here.
Yeah, and the festival we've been watching for a few days now, and the quality of the films is really impressive.
Yes,
very happy with the competition here. Although it would have been better if they hadn't been quite so.
And surprised their films not turned up, hadn't actually entered. Yeah, there's some amazing stuff. It is always sort of kind of the same question, and then sort of delve into other things. But this is quite, I say, high concept, but it's not something I've come across before. That's definitely a compliment, by the way. But I'd love to know the plan, how on earth you came to think, wow, this will make a great film. How did this happen? Because it's a joint, obviously it's a joint thing, and you could also explain your connection to the film. I know that, and I would say that you are the everything behind this film. You know, it's all about you. But if you could just say what your role is.
Sure, should I start with that?
Yeah, you start, yeah.
I think what happened with us in particular, I know this isn't traditional fodder for film festivals, a romantic comedy and a light film like this. It was the idea to do a throwback to the old romantic comedies that used to be around, that aren't, these slapstick or hilarious ones, but just a sweet, heartfelt story.
Yeah.
And also we wanted to do something that would showcase us as actors. And because of our entering the business again after age 40, it was kind of, the idea was to try to combine the feeling of having our own remake.
Right, oh I see, so there's duality to this.
Right, so that we could inspire people maybe to look forward to change and not to be hesitant to try new things like we did. This is, not our first careers, and we came back to it. We had originally started out in theater and acting, and then got away from it for a number of years, and then we decided, you know what, if not now, when?
Why did you decide to switch back? Because that's quite unusual. Was there a moment you just had a power to sort of know this is something I'd really like to do again? What inspired?
Give yours.
This is something that we always wanted to do. I was an actor in theater when I was 16 years old in Argentina, and coming to the United States, the idea of being an actor. But what happened to me and to both of us was that it's very, very hard to get into the business, to be an actor anywhere, but in the United States you can imagine. And we both decided that we wanted to do something. And we went to university, we became a lawyer, the two of us, and we had a law practice for many years.
For 26 years we had a law practice together.
And we worked together, but finally we said, you know what is it that we want to do? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And we're just going to do it, no matter what anybody thinks at this age. But on the contrary, I think that we felt that we could encourage and give people the idea that no matter how old you are, you can really do this. Nobody stops you except yourself.
That's a lovely thing. I had a filmmaker here who was an accountant, a bean counter, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it's very similar in terms of he had an epiphany almost. It was like, I've had enough of this. And he was telling me some of the things that he'd experienced in corporate. And I imagine the money was very good, but, there's a couple of things that happened, and he was like, this is not right, this is not for me. The depression and the sadness and the terror almost. And he just said, I wanted to make a film, so I went out and made a film.
I think, too, when I was young, my family thought, it's a nice hobby for me. But when I went to university, it was you were going to do something else.
So you both studied law at university?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Actually, we met we met when I was 18.
Right.
So we were in university when we met and found that we had this in common. But then we continued. I mean, we decided we'd like to eat on a regular basis, so that maybe acting wasn't the best thing to start out with both of us trying to do it. And so we got a little sidetracked, but it was always in the back of our mind that we wanted to do something with it. And the filmmaking part of it came afterwards. We went back into acting, and we've been doing quite a bit of work between commercials and theatrical work in Los Angeles and New York. But it was always because we started out at the age we did, we didn't have 25 years to build up a resume and credits. And we decided we needed to do something that would bring attention to our own acting careers, and decided we would produce. And then I sat down to create a script that would...
How long did that take?
Actually, we were just discussing it this morning. The actual our film project from shooting, pre-production shooting and post took about 1.5 years, and I wrote it, I would say, within 6 months before that. So it took us 2 years for the entire project.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So about 6 months to write and do most of our pre-production, and then another 1.5 years by the time we actually shot it, and then went into post.
How? I mean, there's so many things I could talk about. But for instance, how did you get the likes of Larry King to be in this? And how did that? Is this wheels within wheels? Is it for people you know?
No, we had no connections whatsoever.
Right.
And one of the things we decided on in the very beginning, we said, okay, we were relative unknowns. Basically, we had done work, but it wasn't. We didn't have a name out there. And we know that with this type of film, I mean, this is a Hollywood type production, a Hollywood film.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And in order to get any kind of attention for it, we knew we had to have a few names. So we started where we met Larry at a friend's grand opening, an actor's friend's, who had a grand opening for a bagel shop in Los Angeles. And Larry happens to be the spokesperson for the chain of Brooklyn Water Bagels.
Okay.
And so he came to the event. We just met him. We had a photo op with him, and I hadn't written the script at the time. I started writing the script shortly thereafter, and as I was writing it, I came to a part where I thought, what would fit in great here is an interview with somebody like Larry King. And I thought, well, why don't I write him into the script? So I wrote Larry into the script.
Right.
And then I called our friend, and she was reluctant to approach him because she had a business relationship with him as far as the bagel place.
Yes.
So she says, well, you go talk to him. And I went, okay, so what do I do? And so we took the script. Actually didn't get to see him that day, dropped off the script, and with a note asking him if he would take the time to read it, that I had written him into our project, and we would love to discuss the possibility of him working on our film.
And then I answered the phone and I said, yes, hello, can I speak to Lynne, please? Yeah, who's this, please? Larry. Okay, Larry King, he says. Oh, okay, here's Larry King.
And I went, hi, Larry. He says, yeah. He says, why don't you swing by? He has a group in the bagel place in one of the shops in Beverly Hills. Yeah. He has a corner booth that he meets all his cronies in, and
every morning.
Every morning.
Actually, Thursday mornings is his shop talk day. He says he does things like that. So he said, why don't you drop by on Thursday morning for coffee and we'll talk about it. And we did.
And you're thinking, this guy is one of the most intelligent guys on the planet.
Yes.
I've got to better get this right.
And I was nervous, obviously. We went in. It was very easy, breezy, wonderful conversation, mostly about other things. He told me in the very beginning that he was having his manager and someone else read the script, that he hadn't read it. And so I was disappointed because I thought I could talk to him about the script. And he says, so, Monday or Tuesday I should be able to give you an answer, but tell me about yourself. And so we started talking about other things. And about halfway through the conversation, he said, what part would I be playing? And I said, yourself, as an interviewer. And he goes, oh, darn, I always have to play myself. Because he's done a lot of movies, but he always plays an interviewer. And so he was a little disappointed. He said the only time he didn't was in, I think it was one of the animated feature films. He got to be a voice. He did the voice of somebody else, one of the monsters,
right,
in Monsters Inc. or something like that. And so he was very disappointed that he didn't get to do anything else. And then he said, you know what, I'll do it.
Without reading the script.
Without reading the script. And I went, but you haven't read it yet. And he goes, that's okay.
Wow.
And I went, okay. And I was like,
and like they say in Hollywood, the rest is history.
Yeah. So we started with Larry. And then since we had Larry that agreed to do it, I needed someone to play my mother. And so Ruben had the idea that we would start looking for someone that could appear to be my mother, that was of about the right age, that had a history that we felt would be marketable for the film. And he reached out to her manager.
I called her manager and I told her what we were doing. And she said, why don't you send me the script? Okay. we sent in the script, and she had told me to call her. When I call her, first thing she says is, "Oh, June loved it. She wants to do it." Yeah.
June Lockhart.
Yeah. So, and the interesting thing was, we called June. We met at some place where we were going to have tea in the afternoon, and she got there before us, and she's waiting for us. As soon as she sees us, she stands up and she says to me, "Now I understand why you want me to play her mother."
She looked just
Because
like
she
my own
says,
mother.
"You look like my daughter."
Yeah,
And it's true.
yeah,
The lady looks exactly like Lynne's mother.
like my mother.
So
Lovely.
that was great.
But we asked her too. I said, "Well, what sold you on it? You know, what made you want to do this?"
Yeah.
And she was cute. She says, "Well, you know, she played Timmy's mother in Lassie, and she played a doctor on Lost in Space." And she said those were her two predominant roles on TV that she had for years. And she says, "But I was always so nice." She says, "I wanted to be a little more villainous.
I want to play
more
the bad lady.
Yeah." And my mother happens to be a little bit cantankerous on the film, so she loved it. She got to be able to be a little bit of a shrew,
Brilliant.
and she enjoyed it.
I mean, you've obviously had a great life in your profession before, so I suppose there's any way you can correlate when the joy of seeing something you've created on screen. You can't, I assume, compare that to anything you've ever done professionally before, because it's a completely different kind of joy, I guess.
Totally different. The only thing I would say is I also had, in addition to our law practice, I was a flight attendant for one of the major, for TWA for many years.
Yeah.
And the similarities between the business as far as the technical aspects of going early and then hanging around and waiting, and
Right.
and having an erratic schedule where you work 14, 17-hour
Yeah,
days
yeah.
and then have nothing for 3 or 4 days. The acting is very similar to that. You know, we go and we're on set and working 14 hours a day, and then you have a breather and you don't work for a week. You know, and everything is hurry up and get there and get into makeup and get into wardrobe, and then you sit. Now the filmmaking's a little different because especially with our type of filmmaking.
In our own movie, it was different because
It was independent, so
all the responsibility.
It comes
so
back to
Everything.
I mean, between producing, directing, acting in it, and you know, in an independent film where our budget was so limited, it was constant. There was no moment to sit down. But as an actor, it's very similar to flying, in the sense that you have the same urgency to get there and get everything ready and set, and then you sit, and then you have to go again, and then it's long hours.
And lots of hanging
And
around.
lots of hanging
Yes.
around, and very long hours, and erratic schedules, and makeup things. If you don't get this shot today, then we have to regroup and figure out how we can get this location again so that we can reshoot it, another day. So there's a lot of similarities.
We
in
learned
that.
a lot
Yeah.
when producing this film. A lot. I think that now we feel like we know so much because we had to work at everything.
It was a bath of fire
Yeah.
because we had no experience in actually producing
Mm.
and or directing, for that matter. And so it was a real learning curve.
And I bet it was quite tough as well. I mean, it was very, very tough.
Yes, yeah,
It was. Yeah, it was exhausting. It was tough. Now, the advantage in a way that we had was because we had a very limited budget, the actors that we had to shoot a lot of weekends because they weren't available during the week.
Oh, because they're working in the week.
Right.
Mm.
And for what we were paying, they weren't about to give up another gig during the week. So we shot a lot of weekends. So it took us, we had 33 days of shooting, but it was spread out over almost 4 months.
Yeah, I'm just doing a quick math. Yeah, of course.
And so it was good in some sense that we had a little bit of downtime in between to prep for the next day, where we weren't every single day. But then the days were really packed because we had to get the most out of our locations.
And I think it did work better for us without realizing that it was going to be like that because
we were new.
without the experience, if we had to do it every single day, like usually is, then I don't know how well we would have done
Or when I would have slept.
or how crazy we would have become. But this of working maybe 3 days and then not filming for another 3 days gave us kind of a breather to be able to plan the next things much better and not to be totally pressured.
Yeah.
with
And,
it.
and was there many sleepless nights?
Oh, yes.
Very. And unfortunately, we were complaining about it because we said, what happened was we wanted this to be kind of a really an avenue for us to show our work, and we were so exhausted most of the time that we see ourselves on camera and we're going like, oh, we should have, that was one of the nights we didn't get any sleep because we were prepping and trying to find the caterer for the next day for the crew and things like that we had to do as far as production. So it was tough. It was really hard. And it's kind of, to me, it's kind of a paradox that new independent filmmakers have to do everything.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously a lot of that.
It should be the other way around. Once you've gotten, so much experience behind you that you would be able to do that, but also learning it as we're going and then having to do absolutely everything, including our acting. It was
I was just thinking about the screening that we went to see with the British actor, the James Bond, Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, Pierce, yeah.
And it was really interesting. They asked him, "Are you involved in a new project made Brosnan?" And he goes, "Oh yes, I have to get up really early tomorrow to go to set." "Oh, what are you doing?" He says, "Well, my son has become a director."
Oh.
And he called me and he asked me, "Dad, can you come really early and make sandwiches for us?" And he said that to us.
It was at the Q&A. We're all like, okay, so
We thought he was kidding. He said, no, it's
No.
true. I got to make sandwiches, he said.
No.
Yes.
So he thought, oh, my
He
next
was-
acting job, and it's like, no.
No. He was just helping his son out because he had an independent film and they were shorthanded.
So
and
if
said,
he can do it,
if he can do it, we
I
can do
guess
it.
we can do it too,
Yeah. Yeah, but he wasn't acting in that one.
No.
And to coin a phrase, you've done everything in this, and would you do it again, knowing what you know now?
Oh, yes.
Or would you
yes.
split it now? Would you think the producing, directing, acting is just too much of a gig?
Go ahead.
Well, no, I think that she would probably like directing, but we probably would like the idea of having maybe more help in the production in other parts, because we had to do a lot of the things that in some cases you have 2 or 3 or 4 people doing.
Mm.
So that would be a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you had asked me immediately after we finished, I probably would have said,
Never again.
no, I don't. I said, talk to me in 6 months, almost like childbirth. It's like I might want to consider this later, but I can't talk about it now. And so I would have probably gotten into it, but initially I would have been hesitant to commit to doing it again. Like you, I think I would have a little more production help.
Yes.
The acting and directing, I think it was okay, and especially, I think it's very difficult since I wrote it to turn it over to somebody else to direct easily. It's like I was so in tune with my characters and what I wanted, and I had such a visual of all the scenes that it would have been difficult, I think, to maybe find on our budget the right director that could have seen it the way I saw it in order to direct. So I think if when things that I write, it might be a little difficult for me to turn it over to another director.
I think it's easier for the typical situation where the production company buys a script,
Yeah.
and the writer sells it, and okay, that's the end.
Then I have no control
That's
over
the
it.
end of the control that the writer had. The production company is going to do anything they want. But when you are involved, you wrote it and you're involved in it.
Yeah.
You know what you want to have done.
Yeah.
And so you become part of it, and so it makes it, in a way, it makes it difficult, because you end up directing because
Yeah.
you feel and you probably know the script better than anybody else.
I think I would like to try to direct with not acting in it, because that did put
Yeah,
additional.
that's stressful.
I put a lot of extra pressure on me.
Well,
on
if
this
you
one.
plan to do another, can I ask you a favor then?
Yeah.
I don't want to audition. Do you think you'll have a part for me?
We could talk about that. Okay.
The thing is, it's something that one of the girls I interviewed yesterday, she just was just a very small UK girl, although she was from Portugal, and she said the reason she didn't direct it, she produced it, she said she really wants to direct. And I said, why? And she said, because even now, even in the UK, there's hardly any female directors.
That's one thing. We are getting more in the
Yeah.
States, quite a few more. A lot of, and even if they're not directing, they are producing. They're getting into their own production companies, which I'm very happy for. And so there's kind of a movement now for women in film. There's also there's a group called Women in Film that I'm a part of,
Oh, wow.
and so we promote other women in all areas of film and directing, writing, crew, everything. And it's because we didn't get a fair shake for so long that I think, especially, that was another reason I thought a light romantic comedy. I wanted a female editor too, because I wanted to have the sensitivity for the topic that I was afraid I might not get with a male editor. So we ended up with both. We had a male that did a rough on it for us, and then we had a female editor do fine tuning on it with me. And so we were very happy with it because she had a sensitivity for it. She knew where I wanted to go with it, and I think it makes a difference to have. Not that we couldn't do any genre, but I think that with something like that, I think it helps.
And is it possible to explain? You finished. Actually, you're about to show the film for the very first time. You've obviously seen it. It's your film. You've seen the finished movie.
2,300. No.
Yeah. So you're sitting there with a. This is in front of the first audience you have. You're about to show the film, or the film's just starting, switched on, being shown to the audience. What feeling is going through? Is it fear, despair? There won't be despair. Joy. Is it?
I think a little bit of joy for finally having an audience. Most of the people that have seen it have been involved in some way, shape, or form with it, or with us. They know us personally.
Yeah.
For them, it's actually difficult, I think, to watch us act and see us as actors because they know us, like friends and family that know us personally. Outside of this, they've known us for so many years as attorneys, and then to see us doing that, they're like, okay, But to have an audience, now the audience, like with a festival, that's filmmakers, so that puts a little edge.
It is.
Yeah, because
on it. They're going
but
to.
They're thinking the same as you when you're watching their film. That's
exactly.
The thing,
Well, that's when I caught myself yesterday being a little judgmental about a few things on the film. Initially, normally I like to see a film once for fun and then to watch it again for technical aspects and things like that. And we get a one-shot deal at a festival, so it's like I'm trying to combine things. And so if I see something, then I kind of focus on it. And I thought, oh, they're going to do that with ours, But it's, I think for a general audience, I would be very relieved finally that we're getting, just a nice feel for how receptive they are to it.
Yeah. I think that for me, when I watch all the filmmakers, whatever they make, I've got such respect because they're artists, and I know that sounds it sounds like I'm being a bit sort of oldie world the way I describe it, but I'm not. It's real because they have put their hearts and souls into it, and I admire that because it must be fantastic to see somebody do. That's like the done right. Yeah, one is, but it's fine. The main one's still going. To have you've created something, and you've seen that on screen. I cannot imagine the feeling, the wonderful feeling you must have seeing that.
Well, actually, my mother had a comment because my mother was very, very creative. She started out in fashion design, and then because of the family, she ended up not using much of her talents in that. But with us, everything she did at home was creative. I mean, she
made everything.
Yeah, she made all the curtains in the house. She loved to do things like that. And I remember her sister was the type who wasn't interested in any type of creative outlet at all. And my mom one day over at her home, she said, I can't imagine not looking around and seeing something that I creatively did and getting pleasure out of it, even for herself, even if nobody complimented her on it or anything like that. For her, that's the way it is. And I think for filmmakers, it's the same. When you finally see your product up there, it's like,
I made that.
We did that.
Yes.
We actually did that.
Yeah, that's
as a matter of fact, she gave me a present. What was it, my birthday? Christmas?
Probably birthday, yeah.
I said, what is it? She said, we're going somewhere. And so I didn't know where I was going, but then, because we have to drive, we arrived to these places at the Dick Clark Studios. And we had shot one of the scenes, we did it at the Dick Clark Studios. And that's what she brought us there. And she had rented the studio, the screen room, just for the two of us.
He had not seen the
I had not seen it. Had you seen it?
Yes, so I worked on it
So
endlessly, you saw it.
So I got to see it like that privately, the two of us. But it was It was incredible. What
Yeah,
an
he actually,
incredible
I mean,
film.
he had seen bits and pieces while we were editing and while we
Yeah,
were doing sound and things like that. He would come in on a regular basis to see, you know, a day or whatever we were working on. But I was there every single day. And then by the time we had the score put into it, he hadn't seen it yet with the complete music score. And so I said, okay, for this we'll do something special. So we rented the studio and did it.
Yeah, it was a great feeling to see it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
loved it. I really loved it.
Well, and,
Yeah.
and it was, I wanted him to see it alone. Actually, I thought of inviting a few people, you know, that would really love to have gotten in and seen it before anyone else. And then I thought, no, it's not fair because he can't, his reactions would have been controlled slightly, even if they're friends, when he sees it the first time. And I really wanted him to just focus on the film and enjoy it.
And just finally, if someone's really close to you says, and they imagine they're quite young, they said, look, I don't know, say they're 19, 20, I don't know what to do in my life. I don't know whether to become a lawyer. I don't know, try and get into film. What would you say to them?
I'd say if you have a passion of any kind, follow it.
It's like there is a TV show where the character always ends up asking somebody, okay, come on. Tell me what you want, but tell me what you really want. It's like, out of your life, what is it that you really want? Don't just forget about all the other things, what people might say, what your life is. What do you really want? And that's what I would tell anybody. Don't be afraid. Just look at yourself in the mirror and ask that person, what do you really want to do? And that's the answer. That's what you should do.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. I think especially at this age, my God, can you imagine if you're able to do that when you're young and you do it? Wow, you know, instead of waiting to have the guts to do it when
I
you're
think
40 or 50
we have the
years old.
advantage too at our age that we weren't worried. I mean, we know people think, some of our family and friends think we're absolutely crazy for what we're doing, you know, and they say, well, wait, you could retire. Why don't you just relax? Why don't you, you know? We said, that's not what we want to do.
I don't want to do that.
No,
I don't want to do that.
No, we love it.
And we love what we do.
Yeah.
We just love it.
Well, this just gets back to what I said to you a moment ago. I've got no conception of how magical it must be to see something you've created actually appear on screen. And especially if you've had successful careers and you just go, no, whatever. Do you know what? Sod it. We can either do it now, we're never going to do this at all.
Yeah.
So you've already had a great life professionally, and then you've gone off a complete tangent. And again, it gets back to that story about the accountant. Very similar. And I asked him that question. I said about, you know, would you wish you'd done it years ago? And he said, oh God, if I'd have done it years ago, can you imagine?
Yeah.
He said, but, you know, the time wasn't right. And
exactly.
I had to reach a tipping point. I think that's what he was getting at. There was a point in his life where I think is much different to yours, where he was reaching a critical point where it was starting to affect him, the job he had.
Oh yeah.
And
No, ours was, and it was time.
Yeah.
You know, we were ready, and it was something we always did want to do. I always did. I paint, and I've always done creative things. So I've had the pleasure of knowing how it feels to have something like that. The production and the filmmaking, it was. I was reluctant at first because I thought it was going to be way too involved, and it was.
Yeah.
It was very, very much so. But I don't regret doing it.
No,
at all.
no, we don't.
No, and I would do it again.
Brilliant.
Oh, sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank
really
you.
mean that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Well, how's this for serious then? I think I'm in love with you.
Oh, God, you don't know how long I waited to hear those words.
I can't do this again. Frank, would you please tell your actor to stick to the script?
All right, cut.